It was 2 a.m., and I was alone again. Not the good kind of alone. Not the peaceful kind where you choose solitude and enjoy the silence. The bad kind. The kind where you're surrounded by empty rooms and emptier thoughts, and the growing feeling that no one would notice if you just stopped. I'd been here before. Hundreds of nights. Same apartment. Same ceiling. Same scrolling through my phone, looking for something to fill the void that kept getting bigger. That night, I wasn't looking for Jesus. I wasn't looking for anything except a distraction. Another video, another debate, another argument to prove I was smart and religion was stupid and anyone who believed in God was fooling themselves. I'd been an atheist my whole adult life, proud of it even. I read Dawkins and Hitchens. I watched Christopher Hitchens destroy religious arguments with that perfect British condescension. I knew all the talking points. The Bible is just mythology. Religion is a virus of the mind. God is a fairy tale for people who can't handle reality. I believed all of it, not because I'd studied deeply, but because it made me feel superior, smarter than the believers, more rational, more enlightened. But superiority doesn't keep you warm at 2 a.m. Superiority doesn't fill the silence. Superiority doesn't answer the question that kept creeping back, no matter how many arguments I memorized. Is this really all there is? Work, sleep, repeat, accumulate, entertain yourself on weekends, retire if you're lucky, die. End. That's it? I'd tried everything to make that feel like enough. Success, money, relationships, travel, achievements. Nothing worked. The emptiness just got deeper. That night, 2 a.m., I was scrolling through YouTube. Another late night in another empty apartment. Nothing new. Then a video popped up in my feed. The title caught me. Not because it was clever, because it was simple. Just 3 words. He saw me. I almost scrolled past. Religious content. Not for me. But the thumbnail stopped my thumb. A man's face, intense eyes, dark skin, weathered, tired. But something in those eyes. They looked like they'd seen things. Real things. Human things. Not the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus I'd seen in church as a kid. Someone who looked like he actually lived in the Middle East. Someone who looked like he understood what it meant to suffer. I clicked. Just to mock it. Probably. Just to feel superior for a few minutes. The video opened on a woman, crying, telling a story about being caught in something shameful, a crowd ready to kill her, religious leaders with stones in their hands, quoting laws, demanding justice. Then Jesus showed up. He didn't speak at first, just bent down and wrote in the dust with his finger, ignored the shouting, ignored the stones, just wrote in the dust. The woman waited. The crowd waited. Everyone waited. Then he stood up and said, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." One by one, the accusers dropped their stones and walked away. Oldest first, then the others, until no one was left but the woman and Jesus. He looked at her. "Where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." I sat in the dark, phone in hand, something pressing against my ribs. Neither do I condemn you. Not go and prove yourself. Not go and earn it. Not go and figure out your life and come back when you're better. Neither do I condemn you. I didn't know why that hit me so hard. I wasn't a woman caught in adultery. I wasn't facing a crowd with stones. I was just a guy in an apartment at 2 a.m., alone with his emptiness. But I knew condemnation. I knew shame. I knew the feeling of being caught in something you couldn't escape. not adultery, just being me, being the version of myself I'd become, the one who pushed people away, the one who chose ambition over connection, the one who was too proud to admit he was desperate. And here was Jesus, looking at someone just like that and saying, "Neither do I condemn you." I watched the rest of the video. 20 minutes. And when it ended, I didn't scroll for another one. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope? Maybe. Or just the faintest crack in the walls I'd spent my whole life building. I didn't pray that night, didn't know how, didn't believe it would work anyway. But before I fell asleep, I whispered something into the dark. If you're real, if any of this is real, I need you to show me. Because I can't keep living like this. Nothing happened. No lightning, no voice, no angel. But the next morning, I woke up different. Not saved, not converted, just open. Just enough to wonder. Just enough to not immediately close the door. And that small crack was enough, because through it, light started getting in, and nothing would ever be the same. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling. Not a good feeling. Not peace or joy or anything religious. Just unsettled. Like I'd opened a door I couldn't close again. Like something had gotten in and I couldn't get it out. I tried to go back to normal. Work, gym, dinner with friends, late night scrolling, the usual routine that kept the emptiness at bay. But everything felt different. I'd be in a meeting, and my mind would drift to that woman in the video. The way Jesus looked at her. No condemnation. Just seeing her. Really seeing her. I'd be at dinner with friends, laughing at the usual jokes, and wonder, would they still be here if they really knew me? The real me? The one I hid behind the jokes, and the success, and the carefully constructed image? I'd be alone at night, scrolling through my phone, and stop on anything religious. Just for a second. Just long enough to feel guilty and scroll past. I didn't want to believe. I really didn't. Believing would mean changing. Believing would mean admitting I was wrong about everything. Believing would mean letting go of the identity I'd built my whole life around. The smart one, the skeptic, the atheist who saw through all the religious nonsense. But the unsettled feeling wouldn't leave. So I did what any rational person would do. I went to war with it. I started watching debates again. Christopher Hitchens versus anyone. Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, the 4 horsemen of new atheism, riding out to save the world from superstition. I watched them destroy religious arguments, point out contradictions, mock creationists, dismantle faith with cold, hard logic. And for a while it worked. I felt smart again, superior, enlightened. But late at night, when the debates were over and the arguments faded, the same question kept coming back. If it's all fake, why are you so angry about it? I mean really angry. The kind of angry that keeps you up at night. The kind of angry that makes you argue with strangers online. The kind of angry that only comes when something threatens you. Why did a 1st century Jewish peasant threaten me? He'd been dead for 2,000 years. His followers were mostly kind, ordinary people. His teachings, even if you didn't believe, were about love and forgiveness and helping the poor. Nothing threatening there. So why was I so desperate to destroy him? I didn't have an answer. One night, 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep. The unsettled feeling was worse than ever. I opened YouTube again, looking for another debate, another fix of intellectual superiority. Instead, I found a video titled, "Why I Left Atheism." I almost scrolled past. Another convert story. another emotional testimony. Another person who probably never really believed anyway. But something made me click. A man, maybe 50, sitting in a simple room. No dramatic music, no emotional manipulation. Just him, talking. "I was an atheist for 30 years, he said. Not the casual kind, the angry kind. The kind who wrote letters to newspapers and argued with anyone who mentioned God. I thought believers were stupid, weak, delusional." I leaned forward. That was me. Then one night, my daughter got sick, really sick. The kind of sick where you sit in a hospital room and watch your child fade and realize you can't do anything to stop it. His voice cracked. Just a little. Just enough. I didn't pray. I didn't believe in anyone to pray to. But I sat there in the dark, holding her hand, and something broke in me. Not my atheism. Not yet. Just the certainty. The absolute certainty that I had it all figured out. He paused. I started reading. Not the Bible, I would never have picked that up. I started reading about near-death experiences, about people who died and came back and described things they couldn't have known. I read about historians who actually studied Jesus instead of just dismissing him. I read about the resurrection, the actual evidence, not the caricature. Another pause, and I realized I'd spent 30 years believing something I'd never actually examined. I believed what my professors told me, what my books told me, what my community told me. I never actually looked for myself. That hit me like a punch. I'd done the same thing. I'd read Dawkins and Hitchens and thought I had it all figured out. I'd never read the Bible, never read the historians who actually studied Jesus, never examined the evidence for myself. I was just as tribal as the believers I mocked, just as closed-minded, just as unwilling to look. I watched the rest of the video, and when it ended, I did something I'd never done before. I opened a new tab, typed Bible into Amazon, bought one. A paperback. Cheap. Something I could hide in a drawer so my friends wouldn't see it. When it arrived 2 days later, I stared at it for an hour before opening it. Black cover, thin pages, the word Bible in simple letters. After the Psalms, I couldn't stop reading. I started skipping around. Genesis was too slow. Exodus too familiar. I wanted something real, something raw, something that would either confirm my skepticism or destroy it. Someone online mentioned the Gospel of Mark, shortest gospel, written first, less theology, more action. Start there, they said. So I did. Mark chapter 1, John the Baptist, Jesus baptized, tempted in the wilderness, calling disciples, healing people. It moved fast. No long speeches, just Jesus showing up and changing things. Then I hit verse 40. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." I stopped. Leprosy, not a disease we think about much today. But in the ancient world, lepers were the walking dead, not just sick, untouchable. They had to live outside cities, cover their mouths, shout unclean whenever anyone came near. They couldn't hug their children, couldn't hold their spouses, couldn't go to synagogue, couldn't work, couldn't touch or be touched. Imagine years without being touched, years of everyone stepping back, years of watching people cross the street to avoid you, years of hearing your own voice shout unclean so others could protect themselves from you. This man breaks every rule just by approaching Jesus. He should have stayed away, should have shouted his warning, should have protected everyone else from his disease. Instead, he kneels in front of Jesus and says, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Not if you can, He knew Jesus could. The question was whether Jesus would want to. Whether Jesus would be willing to touch someone no one else would touch. Whether Jesus would risk everything, his reputation, his religious standing, his ability to function in society, for one unclean man. I knew what I would do. Step back, keep my distance, say something kind from afar. I'll pray for you. Stay strong. God bless. But Jesus? Jesus was filled with compassion. He reached out his hand and touched the man. I read that sentence 5 times. He reached out his hand and touched him. No one touched lepers. No one. For any reason. Touching a leper made you unclean too. It was the fastest way to destroy everything you'd built. Jesus reached out his hand and touched him. I am willing, he said. Be clean. The leprosy left immediately. The man was healed. But it was the touch that got me. Jesus didn't have to touch him. He could have spoken from a distance, could have healed with a word, could have kept himself safe and still done the miracle. But he touched him because the man hadn't been touched in years. Because the man needed more than healing. He needed to know he wasn't disgusting. Because love reaches out, even when it costs something. I sat in my apartment and looked at my own hands. When was the last time I'd reached out to anyone? Really reached out. Not a text, not a like, not a comment. Actual reaching. Risking rejection. Risking discomfort. Risking connection. When was the last time I'd touched someone who needed it? When was the last time I'd let myself be touched? I'd spent years building walls, keeping people at a distance, protecting myself from the messiness of real relationship. I told myself it was independence, strength, not needing anyone. But reading about this leper, I realized the truth. I was just as isolated as he was. Maybe worse. At least he had an excuse. At least society had done it to him. I'd done it to myself. And here was Jesus, reaching through every wall, every rule, every risk to put his hand on an untouchable man. If he'd do that for a leper, I thought, maybe he'd do it for me too. But I had to stop pretending I didn't need it. That was the hard part. I'd spent so long being the strong one, the independent one, the one who didn't need anyone or anything, admitting that I was desperate for touch, for connection, for someone to see me and not step back, felt like admitting defeat. But the leper didn't hide his desperation. He didn't pretend to have it together. He came to Jesus exactly as he was, broken, unclean, untouchable, and begging. If you are willing, you can make me clean. He didn't demand, didn't bargain, didn't offer anything in return. Just laid his brokenness at Jesus' feet and trusted. I'd never done that with anyone. Not with friends, not with family, not with girlfriends. Always the strong one. Always the one who gave, never the one who asked. Always the one who touched, never the one who admitted needing to be touched. That night, alone in my apartment, I looked at my hands again. Then I looked at the ceiling, and for the first time, I didn't whisper a challenge, or a question, or a skeptical, "If you're real," I just sat there, silent, exposed, needing. And in the silence, I felt something I couldn't explain. After the leper, I couldn't stop reading. I'd come home from work, skip the gym, cancel plans, and disappear into that paperback Bible hidden in my drawer. I told myself I was still researching, still looking for contradictions, still building my case. But the truth, I was hooked, not on the theology, not on the arguments, on him, on this person who kept showing up in story after story, doing things no one else would do, touching people no one else would touch. Then I got to Mark chapter 2. A paralyzed man. 4 friends who carried him to Jesus. But the house where Jesus was teaching was so packed they couldn't get through the door. Most people would have given up. Sorry, man. We tried. Maybe next time, let's get lunch. Not these four. They carried him up to the roof, dug through the clay and branches, lowered him down on a mat right in front of Jesus. I read that and put the book down. I didn't have friends like that. I had people I knew, people I drank with, people I worked with, people who liked my Instagram posts. But if I'd been paralyzed, if I'd needed someone to carry me anywhere, if I'd needed someone to tear through a roof because they refused to give up, I couldn't name 4 people who'd show up, couldn't name 2, could barely name 1. That landed hard. The story goes on. Jesus sees their faith, the friend's faith, not just the paralyzed man's, and says, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The religious leaders got angry. Only God can forgive sins. Jesus knew what they were thinking. So he asked, which is easier, to say, "Your sins are forgiven," or to say, "Get up, take your mat and walk"? But so you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. Then he turned to the paralyzed man. "I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." The man got up, walked out. Everyone was amazed. I closed the book and sat in the dark. Here's what got me. Jesus forgave the man before he healed him. The physical healing was just proof. What the man really needed, what everyone in that room really needed, was forgiveness. I didn't think I needed forgiveness. I was a good person. I hadn't murdered anyone. I paid my taxes. I recycled. I held doors for strangers. But sitting in that apartment, alone again at 2 a.m., I realized I'd been carrying something I couldn't name. A weight, a guilt. Not for anything specific, just for being the kind of person who ends up alone at 2 a.m. with nothing but a book and a screen, and a growing awareness that something was missing. The man in the story got up and walked. His friends carried him there, but he walked out on his own. I wanted that. I wanted to get up. I wanted to walk. I wanted someone to forgive me for whatever I'd become. But I didn't have friends who'd carry me anywhere. I'd made sure of that. Years of keeping people at a distance. Years of being too busy for relationships. Years of choosing ambition over connection. I was alone because I'd made myself alone. And now I was reading about 4 guys who refused to let their friend stay stuck, who tore through a roof because they believed, who wouldn't take no for an answer. I wanted to be that friend. I wanted to have that friend. I wanted to know what it felt like to be carried by people who loved you that much. The skeptic in me tried to fight back. It's just a story, probably made up to teach a lesson. Ancient people loved these kinds of tales. But the skeptic was getting quieter, because the more I read, the more I realized these stories weren't like other ancient myths. They were too specific, too human, too full of details that didn't need to be there. Why mention the roof if it didn't happen? Why include the friend's faith if you're just making it up? Why have Jesus forgive sins first, then heal, when any made-up story would have done the miracle first and made it cleaner? The messiness felt like truth. I started thinking about my own mess. All the years I'd spent building walls, all the people I'd let drift away, all the invitations I'd declined, the calls I'd ignored, the vulnerability I'd avoided. What would it feel like to let someone carry me? What would it feel like to trust someone that much? What would it feel like to be lowered through a roof by people who refused to give up on me? I didn't know. I'd never let anyone close enough to try. But that night, for the first time, I whispered something else into the dark. I don't have friends like that. But if you were real, maybe you could be. It felt stupid, childish, praying to a God I didn't believe in about friends I didn't have. But something shifted. Not a voice, not a vision, just a quiet sense that I wasn't alone in that apartment anymore. I opened the Bible again and kept reading. The man got up and walked. I was still paralyzed, still stuck, still alone. But for the first time, I thought maybe I could be carried. Maybe I didn't need 4 friends with a mat. Maybe I just needed one. After the paralyzed man, I kept reading. Couldn't stop. Every night, same routine. Come home, eat something quick, open that paperback Bible, read until my eyes burned. I told myself I was just curious, just researching, just giving it a fair shot before dismissing it forever. But somewhere in those nights, curiosity turned into something else. Need. I needed to know if this was real. Needed to know if the man in these pages actually existed. Needed to know if he could exist for me. Then I got to Mark chapter 5. A woman, bleeding for 12 years, spent everything she had on doctors who couldn't help. She just got worse. 12 years. Not a number, a lifetime. 12 years of watching your savings disappear. 12 years of friends drifting away because you're always sick. 12 years of being untouchable, unclean, unworthy of human contact. In Jewish culture, bleeding made you ceremonially unclean. Everything you touched became unclean. Anyone you touched became unclean. You were isolated, alone, untouchable. For 12 years. I thought about my own isolation, my own years of pushing people away, my own untouchability, not physical but emotional, the walls I'd built so high that no one could get in. She heard about Jesus. She fought through a crowd. She touched the edge of his cloak, just the edge, just the tassel. She didn't ask for his attention, didn't demand a miracle, just thought, if I can just touch his clothes, I'll be healed. And she was, immediately. But here's what got me. Jesus stopped. He felt power go out from him. He turned around in the middle of the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples thought he was crazy. You see the crowd pressing against you on every side, and you ask who touched you? But Jesus kept looking. He knew someone had touched him with more than just physical contact. Someone had touched him with faith. The woman came forward, trembling, afraid. She knew what she'd done. She'd touched a rabbi while unclean. She'd broken the rules. She'd risked making him unclean too. She fell at his feet, told him the whole truth. And Jesus said, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Daughter, not woman, not stranger, not you there. Daughter. In one word, he gave her back everything. 12 years of bleeding had made her unclean, untouchable, unworthy of family or community or hope. 12 years of being told she was less than human, and he called her daughter. I closed the Bible, stared at the wall. This wasn't an argument I could win with logic. This wasn't a debate point I could dismiss. This was a story that reached into my chest and squeezed. The woman in that story, she was me. Not the bleeding part, the desperate part. The part that had spent everything trying to fix myself and only gotten worse. The part that was untouchable because I'd pushed everyone away. The part that just wanted someone to see me. Really see me. And call me something other than alone. I thought about all the things I'd tried to fix myself. Success, money, relationships, achievements, therapy, self-help books, late nights scrolling for answers. Nothing worked. I just got worse. And here was this woman, desperate enough to break every rule, push through every crowd, risk everything, just to touch the edge of his cloak. She didn't ask for a conversation, didn't demand his attention, didn't even want him to look at her. Just touch the edge. That's all. If she could just touch the edge, maybe she'd be okay. I understood that. The desperation, the hope against hope, the reaching out in the dark, not even sure anyone was there. She touched his cloak, and he stopped everything for her. He stopped in the middle of a crowd, stopped in the middle of his mission, stopped everything because one desperate woman reached out in faith. I thought about all the times I'd almost reached out, almost prayed, almost whispered into the dark, and stopped because I didn't think anyone would hear, didn't think anyone would care, didn't think I was worth stopping for. But he stopped for her, a woman nobody else saw, a woman society had thrown away, a woman who'd spent everything and gotten nothing. He stopped for her, and he called her daughter. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I didn't pray a formal prayer, didn't kneel or fold my hands or use religious words. I just reached out, in the dark, like that woman reaching for his cloak. "I don't know if you're real," I whispered. "I don't know if any of this is true, but I'm desperate. I've spent everything trying to fix myself and I just got worse. If you're there, if you're really there, I need you to stop. I need you to see me. I need you to call me something other than alone." Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning, no voice, no angel. But somewhere in the silence, I felt something. After the woman who touched his cloak, I couldn't put the Bible down. I started bringing it to work, reading on lunch breaks, sneaking pages during slow moments. I'd become that person, the one with the hidden Bible, afraid someone might see. But I couldn't stop. Every story pulled me deeper. Every encounter with Jesus felt more real than anything in my actual life. The man on those pages was more alive than anyone I'd talked to in months. Then I hit Mark chapter 4. A storm. Jesus and his disciples are in a boat on the Sea of Galilee. A furious squall comes up. Waves crash over the sides. The boat starts filling with water. These aren't amateurs. They're experienced fishermen who've spent their lives on this sea. If they're terrified, it's bad. And Jesus is asleep. On a cushion. In the stern. While they're dying. They wake him up. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" I felt that question in my bones. Don't you care? How many nights had I whispered that into the dark? Not to Jesus. I didn't know him yet. Just into the void. Into the silence. Into the empty apartment where no one could hear me. Don't you care that I'm alone? Don't you care that I'm empty? Don't you care that I'm drowning? Jesus gets up. He rebukes the wind. Says to the waves, "Quiet, be still." And the storm stops, completely, instant calm. Then he turns to them. "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The disciples are terrified now for a different reason. Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. I read that and thought, I want that. Not the storm stopping. I wanted someone in the boat with me. Someone who could be asleep and still present. Someone who, when I finally woke him up, would actually do something. My life felt like a storm, not a dramatic one. Not the kind with thunder and lightning and dramatic rescues. Just a constant, churning chaos I couldn't make stop. Work stress that followed me home. Loneliness that slept in my bed. Regrets that woke me at 3 a.m. Fear that whispered this was all there would ever be. I'd tried everything to calm it. Success, distraction, entertainment, ambition, therapy, medication. Nothing worked. The storm just kept raging, and I was exhausted from bailing water. The part of this story that got me wasn't the miracle. It was the question Jesus asked after. Why are you so afraid? Why was I so afraid? Of being alone, of failing, of never mattering, of dying and no one noticing, of living and no one caring. I'd spent my whole life running from those fears, building walls, achieving things, proving myself. And still, at 2 a.m., the fears were right there, louder than ever. Jesus didn't shame the disciples for being afraid. He just asked why. He invited them to examine their fear, to wonder if maybe they didn't need to carry it anymore. I'd never done that. I'd never examined my fear. I'd just fed it, fought it, fled from it. Never once asked, why am I so afraid? That night, I tried something new. I sat in the dark and let myself feel it, all of it. The loneliness, the failure, the fear that I'd never matter, the dread that I'd die alone and no one would come to the funeral. I let it wash over me like those waves crashing into the boat. And when I was completely soaked in it, I whispered, I'm afraid. I'm so afraid. And I don't know how to make it stop. No lightning, no voice, no sudden calm. But something shifted. Not the storm, me. For the first time, I wasn't fighting it. I wasn't pretending it wasn't there. I was just in it, with someone. I didn't know if that someone was real. I didn't know if Jesus was actually in the boat with me. But for a few moments, I felt less alone. Then I remembered something. Jesus was asleep during the storm. He didn't panic, didn't grab a bucket, didn't start bailing. He was so at peace, so trusting, that he slept through a hurricane. The disciples had him in the boat. The one who made the wind and waves was right there, breathing peacefully, utterly unafraid. And they were still terrified, because they forgot who was with them. I thought about all the storms I'd faced alone, all the nights I'd fought the waves by myself, all the times I'd been terrified because I forgot. I didn't even know that someone could be in the boat with me. What if he'd been there all along? What if I'd been bailing water for years while the one who could calm storms was right beside me, waiting to be asked? I didn't know if that was true. I still had doubts, still had questions, but that night I whispered something different. I'm in a storm. I'm scared. I don't know if you're real or if any of this is true, but if you're in this boat with me, would you wake up? Would you do something? I can't keep bailing alone. The storm didn't stop that night. My problems didn't disappear. The fear didn't vanish. But something changed. After the storm, I thought I understood. Jesus calms storms. Jesus saves desperate people. Jesus sees the unseen and touches the untouchable. I had him figured out. Then I read Mark chapter 5 again, the whole chapter this time, not just the woman with the bleeding. What came before, what came after, and what I found broke me. It starts with Jairus, a synagogue leader, important man, religious establishment, the kind of person who had everything to lose by associating with Jesus. His daughter is dying, 12 years old, his little girl, the light of his life, and she's slipping away while he watches, helpless. Jairus pushes through the crowd, falls at Jesus' feet, begs him to come. My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. Jesus goes with him. I imagined that walk, Jairus hurrying ahead, looking back, willing Jesus to move faster. Every second feeling like an hour, every heartbeat pounding in his ears. His daughter dying while he walked beside the one person who could save her. Then they get stopped. The woman with the bleeding touches Jesus' cloak. Jesus stops. He feels power go out. He turns around. He asks who touched him. The woman comes forward, trembling, tells her whole story. Jesus speaks to her, calls her daughter, heals her, blesses her. And while he's stopped, messengers arrive from Jairus' house. Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. I felt that in my chest. The delay, the interruption, the news arriving too late. Jairus must have felt like his world was ending. His daughter, his little girl, gone while Jesus was busy with someone else. Gone while Jesus was healing a stranger. His child died. I know that feeling. The times I cried out and nothing happened. The times I begged and got silence. The times I needed help and watched Jesus heal someone else while I waited. How many nights had I whispered into the dark and heard nothing back? How many prayers had I almost prayed and stopped because what was the point? How many times had I thought, if God is real, why doesn't he do something? Why does he let me drown while he's busy with someone else? The messengers tell Jairus it's over. Don't bother the teacher anymore. Too late. Game over. Go home and grieve. But Jesus turns to him and says, don't be afraid. Just believe. Just believe. Easy for him to say. His daughter wasn't dead. He wasn't the one getting the worst news of his life while watching Jesus heal a stranger. But Jairus believed. Or at least he kept walking. He didn't turn back, didn't give up, didn't tell Jesus to forget it. They go to the house. Professional mourners already there, wailing, flute players, chaos, people crying and carrying on. Jesus tells them she's not dead, just sleeping. They laugh at him. They laugh at him. I would have laughed too. 12 years old, dead, not sleeping, dead. Everyone knew dead when they saw it. Jesus puts them all out, takes the parents and 3 disciples, goes into the room where the girl is lying. He takes her hand. Little girl, I say to you, get up. And she does. She gets up and walks around. 12 years old, alive, hungry probably, ready to live. Jesus tells them to give her something to eat. That last detail. Not a sermon, not a lecture, not now you see who I am. Just give her something to eat. She's been dead. Now she's alive. She's probably hungry. Take care of her. I read that and something inside me cracked, because for the first time I saw it. The delay wasn't cruelty, it was compassion. Jesus didn't ignore Jairus to heal someone else. He healed someone else and saved Jairus' daughter. He did both. He just did them in a different order than Jairus would have chosen. The woman with the bleeding had waited 12 years. 12 years of suffering. 12 years of spending everything she had on doctors who couldn't help. 12 years of getting worse instead of better. Her time was now. Jairus' daughter, her time was coming. And when it came, Jesus didn't just heal her. He raised her from the dead. Jairus got more than he asked for. He asked for healing. He got resurrection. I thought about all the times I'd begged God for something and gotten silence. All the prayers that seemed to bounce off the ceiling. All the nights I'd waited and nothing happened. What if the delay wasn't denial? What if it was something else? What if God was healing someone else while preparing something bigger for me? What if the silence wasn't absence but timing? I didn't know. I still don't know. Not fully. But that story planted something in me. A seed of trust. The kind that says, maybe I don't understand the timing. Maybe I can't see the whole picture. Maybe the delay isn't denial. Maybe something bigger is coming. Jairus got resurrection. I don't know what I'll get. But for the first time, I'm willing to wait and see. After Jairus' daughter, I needed a break. Not from reading. I couldn't stop reading now. From feeling. Every story landed like a punch. Every encounter with Jesus left me raw and exposed. I'd start reading at night and look up at 3 a.m., tears on my face, not sure when they'd started. But I kept going. Mark chapter 6, the feeding of the 5,000. I'd heard about this my whole life. Sunday school story, loaves and fishes, cute miracle, nothing that would shake me. I was wrong. Jesus has been teaching all day. The crowds are massive, 5,000 men, plus women and children, maybe 15,000 people altogether, scattered across that hillside, hungry and far from home. The disciples come to Jesus with a problem, a reasonable problem, a practical problem. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food. That's what I would have said. That's what any logical person would say. You can't feed this many people. You don't have the resources. Send them away. Let them take care of themselves. Not your problem. Jesus looks at them and says, "You give them something to eat." I laughed out loud. Alone in my apartment. Laughing at a Bible story. You give them something to eat. That's insane. That's impossible. That's not how the world works. The disciples knew it too. It would take 8 months of wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. We have 5 loaves, 2 fish, that's it. That's nothing. I knew that feeling. Looking at what I had, what I could do, and knowing it wasn't enough, would never be enough. The gap between what I had and what was needed felt infinite. I had 5 loaves and 2 fish worth of life. A decent job, a few friends, some dreams I'd given up on. Nothing that would feed a crowd. Nothing that would change the world. Nothing that would even change me. Jesus takes the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He looks up to heaven, gives thanks, breaks the bread, and then he keeps breaking it. This is what got me. He didn't snap his fingers and have bread appear. He didn't speak a word and summon a feast. He took what they had, that tiny, pathetic offering, and he broke it open. And as he broke it, it multiplied. Piece after piece after piece, passing from his hands to the disciples' hands, to the crowd's hands. And still more, and still more, baskets filling, people eating until they were full. 12 baskets left over. 12 baskets, one for each disciple who doubted, one for each skeptic who thought it was impossible, one for me. I sat there in the dark, staring at those words. They all ate and were satisfied. All of them, every single person, 15,000 hungry people, satisfied, from 5 loaves and 2 fish, from nothing, from not enough. I thought about all the times I'd looked at my life and thought, not enough money, not enough time, not enough energy, not enough faith, not enough to be loved, not enough to matter, not enough to change. I thought about all the things I'd stopped even trying because I knew I didn't have enough. And here was Jesus, taking not enough and making it more than enough. But here's the part that really got me. The boy. Somewhere in that crowd, there was a child, a kid with a lunch his mother packed, 5 barley loaves, 2 small fish. That's all he had. That's all anyone had. When the disciples asked for food, he could have hidden it. Could have eaten it himself while everyone else went hungry. Could have said, "This is mine, I need it, find your own." Instead, he gave it away. He gave Jesus everything he had. It wasn't much, it wasn't enough, but he gave it anyway. And Jesus took it and fed thousands. I thought about what I was holding back, what I was hiding, what I was keeping for myself because I was afraid it wasn't enough. My time, my energy, my heart, my hope, my tiny, pathetic faith. I'd been waiting until I had enough to offer, until I was good enough, until I believed enough, until I had my life together enough. But that boy didn't wait. He didn't have enough. He gave what he had anyway. And Jesus did the rest. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I took the tiny mustard seed of whatever I had, skepticism, curiosity, loneliness, hope, fear, 5 loaves and 2 fish worth of a broken life, and I held it out in the dark. This is all I've got. It's not much. It's probably not enough. But it's yours if you want it. Nothing dramatic happened. No multiplication. No miracle. No voice from heaven. But the next morning, I woke up hungry. Not for food. For more. I opened the gospel again. Kept reading. Kept offering. Kept showing up. And somehow, day by day, the bread kept coming. Not all at once. Not in a way I could see or measure. Just enough for today. Just enough to keep going. Just enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, there would be enough for tomorrow too. I still don't have much. Still feel like 5 loaves and 2 fish most days. After the feeding, I thought I understood. Jesus provides. Jesus takes our little and makes it enough. Jesus sees our hunger and satisfies it. Then I read what happened next. Mark chapter 6, verse 45. Jesus made his disciples get in the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida. He went up on the mountain to pray. Alone. Finally alone. I know that feeling. The need to get away, to breathe, to be with no one but yourself and whatever's out there in the silence. The disciples rowed into the night. Wind came up. Waves grew. They were straining at the oars, making no progress, fighting the storm. And Jesus was alone on the mountain, watching, praying, waiting. Between 3 and 6 in the morning, the 4th watch, the darkest hours, the time when hope is hardest to hold, Jesus came to them. Walking on the water, they screamed, thought he was a ghost. Terror on top of exhaustion, on top of fear. The last thing they expected was him. The last thing they expected was help coming in a way that made no sense. But Jesus spoke. "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." And Peter, reckless, impulsive, lovable Peter, said something I would never have said. "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water." If it's you. Peter had doubts. Even as he spoke, there was an if. He wasn't sure. He wasn't certain. He had questions, fears, uncertainties. But he asked anyway. One word from Jesus. "Come." Peter got out of the boat. He walked on water. For a few seconds, maybe minutes, Peter did the impossible. He defied every law of physics, every rule of nature, every limit of human ability. He walked on water because Jesus said one word and he believed it enough to try. Then he looked at the wind. He took his eyes off Jesus, looked at the storm, looked at the waves, looked at how impossible this was, how crazy he was, how far from the boat he'd come, and he started sinking. "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said. "Why did you doubt?" When they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. The disciples worshipped him. "Truly, you are the Son of God." I read this story and couldn't breathe, because I am Peter. Not the walking on water part, the sinking part. I'd spent my whole life in the boat. Safe. Dry. Watching the storm from a distance, criticizing the ones who tried to walk, telling myself it was smarter to stay put. But somewhere in these weeks of reading, I'd started to wonder. What if I got out? What if I stopped analyzing from a distance and actually tried to walk? What if I said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come"? I didn't have Peter's courage. I didn't have his impulsiveness. I didn't have his willingness to make a fool of himself. But I had something else. Desperation. The boat wasn't safe anymore. It was crowded with my fears, my doubts, my failures, my loneliness. The storm was raging, and staying in the boat felt just as terrifying as getting out. So one night, alone in my apartment, I did something Peter would have recognized. I said, "If you're real, tell me to come." No voice, no command, just silence. But somewhere in that silence, I felt something. A nudge, a pull, a whisper that might have been my own imagination or might have been something more. I got out of the boat. Not literally. I didn't walk on water. But I started doing things I'd never done before. I started praying, real prayers, not experiments. I started reading the Bible like it might actually be true. I started talking to friends about faith, friends who'd known me as the skeptic, the atheist, the one who'd mock anyone who believed. And for a while, I walked. I felt alive. I felt free. I felt like I was finally doing what I was made for. Then I looked at the wind. I looked at my friends' faces when I told them I was changing. I looked at the arguments I'd spent years building, now crumbling. I looked at how far I'd come from the boat and how far I still had to go. And I started sinking. Doubt flooded back. Fear. What if this was all in my head? What if I was just lonely and desperate and grasping at anything? What if I got out of the boat and there was no one there to catch me? "Lord, save me," I whispered. Not dramatic, not loud, just a whisper from a sinking man. And in that moment, I felt something I can't explain. A hand, not physical, not something I could see or touch, but there, present, catching me before I went under. "You have little faith," I heard in my heart. Why did you doubt? Not angry, not disappointed, just sad. Sad that I'd looked at the wind instead of him. Sad that I'd forgotten who called me out in the first place. I climbed back into the boat. Not the old boat, not the old life, but a new one. A boat with him in it. And the storm got quiet. Not the external storm. That's still raging. Life is still hard. Doubts still come. Fear still whispers. After Peter walked on water, after he sank, after Jesus caught him, I had to stop reading. Not because I was bored, because I was overwhelmed. Every story felt like it was about me. Every encounter felt personal. Every miracle felt like it was reaching through the pages and touching something in my chest that I'd kept locked away for years. I needed to process, needed to think, needed to decide what I actually believed. So I took a break from reading, just for a few days. Tried to go back to normal life, work, gym, dinner with friends, the usual routine. But normal life didn't feel normal anymore. I'd be sitting in a meeting, and my mind would drift to that leper. The way Jesus touched him when no one else would. I'd be at dinner with friends, laughing at jokes, and wonder, would they still be here if they knew what I was really thinking about? I'd be alone at night, and the question would come back. What if it's true? What if all of it is true? I couldn't escape it. So one night, I did something I'd never done before. I opened the Bible to a different place. Not Mark, not the stories I'd been reading. Something else. Matthew chapter 16. Jesus and his disciples are in a region called Caesarea Philippi. He asks them a question. Who do people say the Son of Man is? They give the usual answers. Some say John the Baptist. Some say Elijah. Some say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Then Jesus looks at them and makes it personal. But what about you? Who do you say I am? That question stopped me cold. Not, what do the scholars say? Not, what does your religion teach? Not, what did you learn in Sunday school? Who do you say I am? Peter answers first. Of course he does. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus blesses him, tells him this wasn't revealed by flesh and blood, but by the Father in heaven. And then he says something strange. On this rock I will build my church. Not on Peter the man, on Peter's confession, on the truth of who Jesus is. I closed the Bible and stared at the wall. Who do you say I am? The question hung in the air like it was spoken aloud. I'd spent weeks reading about Jesus, watching him heal lepers and forgive sinners and calm storms and raise the dead. I'd felt his presence in my apartment at 2 a.m. I'd whispered prayers into the dark and felt something reach back, but I'd never answered the question. Who do you say I am? Not who do the scholars say. Not who do the atheists say. Not who do my friends say. Who do I say? I sat in the dark for a long time. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. Just me and that question. I thought about all the evidence, all the stories, all the moments that had cracked me open. The woman at the well, the leper, the paralytic, Jairus' daughter, the feeding, the storm, Peter walking on water and sinking and being caught. I thought about the way Jesus looked at people, really looked at them, saw them, loved them, didn't turn away. I thought about the way he touched lepers and ate with sinners and forgave adulterers and called a tax collector to be his disciple. I thought about the cross, the words, Father, forgive them. Today you will be with me in paradise. It is finished. I thought about the empty tomb, the women who found it, the disciples who didn't believe at first, Thomas who demanded proof, Jesus who came back for him anyway. And I thought about my own life, the emptiness I'd carried for years, the walls I'd built, the running I'd done, the 2 a.m. nights when I thought no one saw me. Someone did. Someone had been seeing me all along. Someone had been waiting for me to stop running and turn around. That night, alone in my apartment, I did something I never thought I'd do. I got on my knees. Not because I was supposed to, not because church taught me to, just because it felt right, felt humble, felt like the only position that matched what was happening inside me. And I spoke out loud. Not a whisper this time, not a cautious, if you're real, not a skeptical experiment. Real words, real prayer, real surrender. I don't understand everything. I still have questions. I still have doubts. I still don't know what to do with most of this. But I know you're real. I know you've been with me in this apartment at 2 a.m. I know you've been reaching for me through these stories. I know you touched that leper and forgave that woman and caught Peter when he sank. And I know you've been doing the same for me. So here's my answer. Who do I say you are? You're the one who saw me when I was invisible. You're the one who touched me when I was untouchable. You're the one who caught me when I was sinking. You're the one who died for me while I was still running. You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God, and I'm yours. Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning, no voice, no angel. But something shifted, deep down, in the place where I had carried emptiness for so long. Something shifted. I felt full after that night on my knees. I thought everything would be easy. I'd confessed. I'd surrendered. I'd answered the question. Now surely the road would be smooth. Surely the doubts would vanish. Surely I'd wake up every morning with peace and joy and unshakable faith. Yeah, right. The next morning, I woke up and nothing felt different. Same apartment, same loneliness, same doubts creeping back at the edges, same fear that I'd imagined the whole thing. I panicked. Was that real? Did I actually encounter God? Or did I just get caught up in emotional stories because I was desperate and lonely? Did I actually believe, or did I just want to believe? The questions flooded back, harder than before. I opened my Bible, looking for comfort. Instead, I found Matthew chapter 17. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up a high mountain, just them. Away from the crowds, away from the other disciples, away from everything. And there, on that mountain, something happens. Jesus is transfigured before them. His face shines like the sun. His clothes become dazzling white. Moses and Elijah appear, talking with him. The disciples are terrified and amazed. Peter, being Peter, starts talking. "Lord, it's good for us to be here. Let me put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." While he's still speaking, a bright cloud covers them. A voice thunders from the cloud. "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." The disciples fall face down, terrified. Jesus touches them. "Get up. Don't be afraid." When they look up, no one is there but Jesus. I read that story and thought, that's what I want. A mountaintop experience, glory, visibility, certainty. A voice from heaven confirming everything. But then I kept reading. They come down the mountain, and immediately there's a crowd, a commotion, a man with a demon-possessed son. The other disciples couldn't heal him. The religious leaders are arguing. Chaos everywhere. The man runs to Jesus. "Lord, have mercy on my son. I brought him to your disciples, but they couldn't heal him." Jesus sighs. "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here." He heals the boy, instantly. Later, the disciples ask him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" Jesus says, "Because you have so little faith. Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." I closed the Bible and thought about mountains. I'd just been on a mountain, not a real one, a spiritual one, a moment of clarity and surrender and peace. I'd felt God's presence. I'd answered the question. I'd knelt and confessed. But now I was back down in the valley, and there was chaos, doubts, fears, questions, the same struggles I'd had before, the same loneliness, the same emptiness, just with a different name attached. What was wrong with me? Why didn't the mountaintop last? Why was I still struggling? Then I noticed something I'd missed before. The disciples who couldn't heal the boy? They'd been on the mountain too. Peter, James, and John saw the transfiguration. They heard the voice from heaven. They experienced glory. And they still couldn't cast out a demon. The mountaintop didn't make them powerful. It didn't remove all their struggles. It didn't mean they'd never fail again. They came down the mountain and immediately faced something they couldn't handle. Just like me. I realized something that changed everything. The mountaintop isn't the point. It's not where we live. It's where we're reminded who we belong to, so we can go back down and face the valley. Peter, James, and John saw Jesus in glory, but they also saw him heal a boy they couldn't help. They experienced the divine, but they also experienced their own failure. Both things were true. Both things are true for me too. I had a mountaintop moment, a real one. I know it. I felt it. It changed me. But I also have valley moments, moments of doubt, moments of failure, moments when my faith feels tiny and useless. Jesus said, faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains, not faith as big as a mountain, faith as small as a seed. That's all I have most days, a tiny seed. A mustard seed, smaller than I'd like, smaller than I think I need. But Jesus said, "It's enough." The disciples couldn't heal the boy because of their little faith. But Jesus could, and He's still with me in the valley, even when my faith is tiny. I'm learning that mountaintops are gifts, but valleys are where we grow. Mountaintops show us who God is. Valleys show us who we are, and both are necessary. I still want the mountain. I still pray for moments of clarity and peace and certainty. But I'm learning to live in the valley too, because that's where most of life happens. That's where the broken people are, after the mountaintop, after the valley, after the mustard seed faith that felt too small. I kept reading, not because I was good at it, because I couldn't stop, because somewhere in those pages I'd found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Then I hit Matthew chapter 16 again, different part this time. Jesus asks His disciples a question, not "Who do you say I am?" That one I'd answered. That one changed everything. Another question, harder. "Who do you say I am?" was about Jesus. This one was about me. Matthew 16:24. Then Jesus said to His disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Deny themselves, take up their cross, follow me. I read those words and felt my stomach drop. Deny myself? I'd spent my whole life pursuing myself, my success, my happiness, my goals, my identity, my freedom. Everything was about me. Now this man I was starting to believe in was asking me to deny all of it. Take up my cross? That's not a metaphor about carrying burdens. In the first century, people knew exactly what the cross meant. It meant death. Public, shameful, agonizing death. Taking up your cross meant walking to your own execution. Follow me? I'd been trying to do that. Reading, praying, believing, but following suddenly sounded a lot harder than I'd thought. I put the Bible down, stared at the wall. This was the part they don't put on the inspirational posters, the part they don't highlight in the feel-good videos, the part where Jesus stops being comforting and starts being demanding. Deny yourself, not improve yourself, not work on yourself, not become a better version of yourself. Deny yourself. I thought about all the things I'd have to deny. My pride, my independence, my right to be angry, my need to be right, my control over my own life, my plans, my dreams, my identity as a skeptic, a rationalist, someone who had it figured out, all of it. Take up your cross, not carry your burdens, not deal with your struggles. Die. Die to yourself every day. Choose death so that something else can live. Follow me. Not agree with me. Not believe in me. Not appreciate what I did for you. Follow. Wherever. Whenever. Whatever it costs. I didn't know if I could do that. I still had doubts. Still had questions. Still had parts of my life I wasn't ready to surrender. Still had fears about what people would think if I actually became a real Christian. I'd spent my whole life building a self I was proud of, a self that was smart and successful and independent, a self that didn't need anyone or anything. And Jesus was asking me to deny that self, to let it die, to follow Him instead. I wrestled with this for days, maybe weeks. Every time I opened the Bible, those words stared back at me. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. Follow me. I tried to negotiate. What if I just believe but keep living the same way? No. What if I follow sometimes but keep control of the important stuff? No. What if I deny the parts of myself that are obviously bad, but keep the rest? No. It was all or nothing. Always had been. I just hadn't wanted to see it. One night, 2 a.m. again, I finally stopped negotiating. I thought about what he'd already given up for me. The garden, the cross, the cry of abandonment, the death. He denied himself completely, took up his cross literally, followed the Father's will all the way to the grave. For me, while I was still running, still hiding, still building my little kingdom of self. And he was asking me to do the same. Not the dying part, not literally, but the surrender part, the letting go part, the trust part. Could I? I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to try. That night, I prayed a different kind of prayer. Not save me, not show me, not help me. Jesus, I don't know if I can do what you're asking. I don't know if I'm strong enough to deny myself. I don't know if I'm brave enough to take up my cross. I don't know if I'm faithful enough to follow wherever you lead. But I want to try. I want to. Help me with my wanting. Help me with my trying. Help me with my failing. I'm yours, all of me. Even the parts I'm still holding on to. Even the parts I don't want to give up. Even the parts I'm scared to surrender. I'm yours. Nothing dramatic happened. No lightning. No voice. But something shifted. A little more. A little deeper. A little closer to the person he was making me into. I still struggle with self-denial. Still hold on to things I shouldn't. Still try to control my own life. Still run back to the person I used to be. But every time I do, I remember that question. And every time, I have a choice. Deny myself. Take up my cross. Follow him. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not what I would have chosen. But it's what he chose for me. And I'm learning that the life I lose is nothing compared to the life I find. After the cross question, I thought I understood what following Jesus cost. Deny yourself. Take up your cross. Die to your old life. I'd said yes. I'd meant it, or at least I'd wanted to mean it. Then I read about the garden. Matthew chapter 26, the night before Jesus died. He takes his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, an olive grove on the Mount of Olives, a place he'd gone many times before. He tells most of them to sit while he prays, takes Peter, James, and John with him, the same three who saw him transfigured on the mountain, the ones he trusted most. Then he says something that stopped my heart. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. I read that sentence 5 times. Jesus, the Son of God, the one who calmed storms and raised the dead and healed lepers with a touch, overwhelmed with sorrow, to the point of death. This wasn't the Jesus I'd been taught about in Sunday school, that Jesus floated through life, untouched, unbothered, above it all, that Jesus faced death with stoic calm, reciting scriptures, serenely accepting his fate. This Jesus was falling apart. He tells them, "Stay here and keep watch with me." Then he goes a little farther. He falls on his face, not kneels, falls, face in the dirt, and he prays. "Abba, Father," he cries, not the formal Father God. Abba, Daddy, the intimate word a child uses in the dark when they're scared. Everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. He asked for another way. Did you know that? He asked. He didn't want to die. He was afraid to die. He was 33 years old, with a mother who loved him, and friends who needed him, and work that wasn't finished. Everything in him wanted to live. I sat in my apartment, reading those words, and something cracked open. Here was a man who understood what I felt at 2 a.m. The fear, the dread, the desperate prayer for another way, the begging for the cup to pass. He felt all of it, and he kept praying, yet not what I will, but what you will. 3 times he prayed. 3 times he asked for another way. 3 times he surrendered. Between prayers, he went back to his disciples. They were sleeping. 3 times he asked them to watch. 3 times he found them asleep. Peter, James, John, the ones who swore they'd die for him, the ones who saw him transfigured, the ones he trusted most. They couldn't stay awake for 1 hour. He faced the worst night of his existence completely alone. I thought about all the nights I'd felt alone, all the times I'd begged for help and heard nothing, all the moments I'd needed someone to watch with me and no one came. Jesus knew that feeling. He knew it intimately, and he kept going. When the soldiers came, he didn't run. When Judas kissed him, he didn't curse. When Peter swung a sword, he healed the wound. When they arrested him, he went quietly. Because he had said yes in the garden, the surrender came before the suffering. The yes came before the nails. I realized something at that night. I'd been praying for the cup to pass for years. God, take this loneliness away. Take this fear away. Take this struggle away. Give me another way. But I'd never prayed the second part. Yet not what I will, but what you will. I'd never surrendered to whatever came next. I'd only begged for escape. Jesus didn't get an escape. The cup didn't pass. He drank every drop. But he got something else. Strength to face it. Presence in the middle of it. And on the other side, resurrection. I didn't know what cups were coming in my life. Didn't know what suffering I'd still have to face. Didn't know what surrenders were ahead. But I knew one thing. He'd been there first. He'd faced the garden. He'd felt the fear. He'd asked for another way. He'd surrendered anyway. And if he could do that, maybe I could too. That night, I prayed a different prayer. Father, I don't want this cup. Whatever it is, the loneliness, the struggle, the fear, I don't want it. I've been begging you to take it away for years. But if it's not going to pass, if this is what I have to walk through, then give me what you gave Jesus. Strength to face it, presence in the middle of it, and on the other side, resurrection. Not what I will, but what you will. I didn't feel stronger after that prayer, didn't feel braver, didn't feel like the cup was lighter, but I felt less alone, because I knew someone had prayed this prayer before me, and he was praying with me now. After the garden, I didn't want to keep reading. I knew what came next. The arrest, the trials, the beatings, the mockery, the walk to Golgotha, the nails, the cross. I'd heard it all before. Sunday school stories, Easter sermons, movies with dramatic music and noble deaths. I wasn't prepared for how raw it would feel in black and white. Matthew chapter 27. No music, no drama, just words on a page. And they wrecked me. Judas hangs himself. Peter weeps bitterly. Pilate washes his hands. The crowd shouts for Barabbas. Soldiers strip Jesus, put a scarlet robe on him, twist a crown of thorns, mock him, spit on him, strike him on the head. Then they lead him away to crucify him. I read each sentence slowly, letting it land. Simon of Cyrene carries the cross. They reach Golgotha. They offer Jesus wine mixed with gall, a mild painkiller. He tastes it and refuses. He wants to feel everything. Then they nail him. The Bible doesn't describe it, just says they crucified him. 4 words, that's all. The most brutal execution ever invented, summed up in 4 words. They divide his clothes by casting lots. They sit down and keep watch. They put a sign above his head. This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. 2 criminals are crucified with him, one on each side. People passing by hurl insults, shake their heads. You who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you are the Son of God. The chief priests mock him. The teachers of the law join in. He saved others, but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. Even the criminals insult him. And Jesus? He says almost nothing. Earlier, in Luke's Gospel, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." To the criminal who defended him, he said, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." To his mother, watching him die, "Woman, here is your son." To John, "Here is your mother." But in Matthew's account, there's mostly silence until the 9th hour, 3 in the afternoon, 3 hours of darkness covering the land, 3 hours of Jesus hanging in agony. And then he cries out, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani?" My God, why have you forsaken me?" I stopped breathing. That cry has haunted history for 2,000 years. The Son of God, feeling abandoned by the Father, the one who had never been alone, suddenly alone. The perfect unity of the Trinity, torn apart. Some people nearby think he's calling for Elijah. They wait to see if Elijah will come and save him. He doesn't. Jesus cries out again, loud, a final cry. And then he dies. At that moment, the curtain of the temple is torn in two, from top to bottom, not bottom to top. God tore it. The earth shakes, rocks split, tombs break open. Dead people come to life and walk into Jerusalem. The Roman centurion, the man in charge of the execution, sees all this and says, "Surely he was the Son of God." I closed the Bible and sat in the dark. The Son of God died feeling abandoned by God. That's what I couldn't get past. If Jesus was just playing at humanity, pretending to suffer while knowing everything would be fine in 3 days, then this is a performance, a drama, a show. But if he really felt forsaken, if he really experienced the absence of the Father, if he really died the death we deserve, then this is love beyond comprehension. I thought about all the times I'd felt abandoned, all the times I'd cried out, "Why have you forsaken me?" All the nights I'd screamed into the void and heard nothing back. He felt that. He felt it on the cross. For me, he didn't have to. He could have come down. One word and 10,000 angels would have rescued him. One thought and the nails would have fallen out. One prayer and the cross would have crumbled. He stayed, because leaving would have meant leaving me alone forever. He stayed. He felt abandoned, so I never have to be. I don't understand that kind of love. I can't explain it. I can't earn it. I can't deserve it. All I can do is receive it. That Friday, 2,000 years ago, looked like defeat, like failure, like the end of the story. It felt like forever to those who loved him. But it wasn't the end. Sunday was coming. After Friday, I didn't want to read Sunday. I know that sounds strange. Sunday is the good part, the happy ending, the resurrection. Everyone loves Sunday. But I was still sitting in the darkness of the cross, still hearing that cry, still feeling the weight of, "Why have you forsaken me?" I wasn't ready for joy, wasn't ready for celebration, wasn't ready for the empty tomb. I stayed in Friday for 3 days, not on purpose. I just couldn't move past it, couldn't stop thinking about him hanging there, feeling alone, dying for people who mocked him, soldiers who nailed him, disciples who ran. For me, I sat in my apartment those 3 days, going through the motions of life, but my heart was stuck at the cross. Then Sunday morning came, not because I chose it, because it always does. I opened the Bible to Matthew chapter 28. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. At dawn, while it was still dark, John's Gospel says, they couldn't sleep. They couldn't wait. They went as early as possible to anoint a dead body, because love doesn't care about logic. They weren't expecting resurrection. They were expecting a corpse. They were bringing spices to cover the smell of decay. They were going to mourn at a tomb. But when they got there was a violent earthquake. For an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel spoke to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him." The women ran, afraid yet filled with joy. Afraid yet filled with joy. That phrase stopped me. Afraid yet filled with joy. That was me. Afraid of what this would mean for my life. Afraid of what people would think. Afraid of all the changes I'd have to make. Yet filled with joy because he was alive. Because the grave couldn't hold him. Because death wasn't the end. They ran to tell the disciples, and on the way, Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." My brothers. Not my disciples. Not my followers. Not the ones who stayed faithful. My brothers. The ones who ran. The ones who denied. The ones who doubted. The ones who hid behind locked doors. He called them brothers. I read that and lost it. After everything, after denying him, running away, hiding in fear, they were still his brothers, still family, still loved. He rose from the dead, and the first thing he did was send someone to tell his failures that he wasn't ashamed of them. That's who Jesus is. Not the judge I feared. Not the distant God I imagined. Not the religious figure I'd dismissed. The one who calls failures brothers. The one who meets us on the road when we're running away. The one who says our name in the garden. The one who's alive. I thought about my own journey, all those 2 a.m. nights, all the doubts and fears and questions, all the arguments I'd memorized, all the walls I'd built, all the running I'd done, and he'd been there the whole time, waiting, watching, loving, calling me brother. I closed the Bible and looked around my apartment. Same walls, same furniture, same 2 a.m. darkness starting to fade. But everything was different, because he was alive. Not a symbol, not a story, not a myth. Alive. And if he was alive, then everything he said was true. Everything he promised was real. Everything he offered was mine. Forgiveness, grace, purpose, hope, eternal life, a seat at the table, a place in the family, mine. Not because I earned it, not because I deserved it, not because I finally got my act together. Because he loved me, while I was still an atheist, while I was still mocking, while I was still running, while I was still hiding in my apartment at 2 a.m., trying to debunk his existence. He loved me, and he rose again. That's the video that made me believe. Not a single video, actually. 1,000 moments, 1,000 stories, 1,000 2 a.m. encounters with a man who kept reaching through the pages and touching something in my chest. But if I had to pick one moment, one frame, one verse, one breath that changed everything, it would be this. He is not here. He has risen. The tomb is empty. Death is dead. Love wins, and nothing has ever been the same.